Somewhere in that freezing landfill, police say are irretrievable remains of two murdered Indigenous women, Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron.
I should not have to come here and be so mad and beg so that you will find and bring our loved ones home.
Whose families, including Morgan Harris's daughter, along with some Indigenous leaders, traveled to Ottawa to insist the bodies be recovered.
Police won't do anything, and they say that they can't search because it's not feasible. Is human life not feasible?
Last week, police announced charges in the murders of Harris and Myron, along with another woman identified only by this jacket, now being referred to by elders as Buffalo Woman. The charges stem from evidence in the investigation into the death of a fourth woman, Rebecca Contois. Last May, Contois' remains were found in this area of freshly dumped garbage in Winnipeg's largest landfill.
We didn't have a starting point.
Now police say the remains of Harris and Myron went to a different landfill, weeks before their murders were discovered. They were compacted, spread out, buried with animal remains, and capped with clay.
It's to a depth of about 40 feet. And you can see you can't really see the garbage. It's underneath that wet, heavy construction clay that's been packed and bulldozed and manipulated by heavy machinery for 34 days between the time of disposal and the time of our awareness. It's tough when we're being criticized for almost a lack of caring, when I don't think that's the case. Our members are working extremely hard in this case.
Jeremy Skibicki faces 4 first-degree murder charges, 1 for each woman. His lawyer says he'll plead not guilty. Meanwhile, the families and leaders who traveled to Ottawa met with the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, citing these killings as yet another example of a failure to protect vulnerable Indigenous women.
I'm really hoping that, the federal government will act today, and it should have been yesterday.
So there's no normalizing this away. This is happening today, and it is an absolute shame that a person like me has to stand here today and tell people, and cannot guarantee people that this will not happen again. But that's the reality.
Now, Miller says the government is working on core issues like safe housing, but concedes the federal government isn't moving fast enough. Today, he suggested more funding could be made available for searches in murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls and two-spirited people cases. However, today, the Winnipeg police said funding here isn't the issue. It was timing and logistics.
And Cameron, I know there's another big unknown here. Just who is that woman, still unidentified, who people are now calling Buffalo Woman?
Yeah, so that name was granted to her yesterday by Anishinaabe elders. They said they didn't want this woman to be just another Jane Doe, that they wanted her to have an identity in the community while police are still trying to determine her identity. Today, we asked the police about that investigation. They say they've had some calls in, but are really no closer to identifying her. Adrienne?
All right, Cameron McIntosh in Winnipeg. Thanks, Cam.